A few years ago, a man sat across from me and placed two bank statements on my desk. The first one said 12 million francs. The second one, 4 years later, said 7.8 million. And here is the part that should worry you. During those 4 years, the markets went up. Nobody stole from him. Nobody broke a single law. Everything that happened to his money was perfectly legal, and it all began with one promise his banker told him on the very first day. By the end of this video, you will know that promise. Before we begin, one thing matters to me. Every case I share with you is fully anonymized. Swiss attorney-client privilege applies without exception. Any resemblance to real persons or events is pure coincidence. Let me tell you about this man. I will call him Thomas. Thomas had spent 30 years building a machinery company. Not glamorous work, early mornings, factory floors, payroll worries. When he finally sold the company, he was 61 years old, and for the first time in his life, he had more money than problems. 12 million francs sitting in an account, waiting for a decision. So Thomas did what almost every intelligent person in his position does. He went to the biggest Swiss bank he could find, and I want to be fair here. From his perspective, this was not a mistake. It was obvious. A big bank has survived wars, crises, and 150 years of history. Marble lobby, private elevator, a relationship manager who remembered his wife's birthday. If safety exists anywhere in this world, Thomas thought, it exists here. At the first meeting, his new relationship manager leaned forward, looked him in the eye, and made a promise. A promise that sounds like a warm blanket. The promise printed, in one form or another, in every private banking brochure ever produced. Mr. Thomas, from today, we take care of your interests. That is the biggest lie in banking. And the tragedy is this. The man who said it probably believed it himself. Here is what happened next. And I have seen this pattern hundreds of times in my career. Within 6 months, Thomas's 12 million portfolio was fully invested. His portfolio looked impressive. Thick quarterly reports, colorful charts, names he could not pronounce, structured products, in-house investment funds, certificates issued by the bank itself. Notice something? Almost every product in his portfolio was manufactured by the same institution that was supposedly advising him neutrally. The bank was the chef, the waiter, and the food critic, all at the same table. Every one of those products carried fees, visible fees and invisible ones, management fees inside the funds, issuing margins inside the certificates, distribution commissions that passed quietly from the product back to the bank that recommended it. Each fee was small. Together, they worked on his wealth like water on stone, slowly, silently, and without a single dramatic moment he could point to. Then came a difficult year in the markets. Thomas's portfolio fell much harder than the market itself because layered products fall faster than simple ones. When he asked questions, he did not get answers. He got presentations, 40 pages of them. When he asked to speak to his relationship manager, he learned the man had been promoted to another city. His new advisor was 29 years old and suggested, "You will appreciate this, a new structured product to repair the portfolio." That was the day Thomas came to see me. Now here is the moment where I have to defend the banks, because the truth is more uncomfortable than a villain story. The people at that bank were not criminals. They were not even bad people. The relationship manager who promised to take care of Thomas's interests was a decent man with a family and a mortgage. But he was also an employee. His salary, his bonus, and his career were paid by the bank, not by Thomas. He had sales targets. He had product campaigns handed down from above. When the interests of the bank and the interests of Thomas pointed in different directions, and they often did, he was structurally required to choose his employer. This is what I learned in 3.5 decades in this business. Part of it inside the banking world myself. The biggest lie that banks tell you is not a lie of character. It is a lie of architecture. A bank employee can be honest, intelligent, and charming and still be unable to represent you because you cannot serve the person in front of you and the institution behind you at the same time. Nobody can. And the size of the bank, the marble lobby, the 150 years of history, that protects the bank. It does not protect you. In fact, the bigger the machine, the bigger its appetite, and the smaller you are inside it. 12 million francs makes you a king in your village. In the books of a global bank, it makes you a rounding error. So what did we do for Thomas? We did not move him to a better bank. That would have changed the wallpaper. not the architecture. Instead, we separated two things that should never have been combined in the first place: the custody of his money and the investment advice on his money. His assets stayed in Switzerland at a solid custodian bank, but the bank's role was reduced to what a bank does brilliantly: holding assets safely, executing transactions, reporting honestly. A vault, not a salesman. The advice came from a different place entirely: an independent wealth manager, licensed and supervised under Swiss law, who is paid by one party only: the client. No in-house products to push, no sales targets imposed from a head office, no more conflict of interest situations. If Thomas's portfolio grows, this advisor succeeds. If it shrinks, he answers for it, face to face. The interests are finally pointing in the same direction. Within a year, Thomas's portfolio was simple enough that he could explain it to his wife over dinner. The hidden fee layers were gone. No hedge funds, no expensive structured products, and for the first time since he sold his company, he told me he slept through the night. If you take one thing from this video, take this question. It is worth more than any product a bank will ever offer you. Who pays the person who advises me? If the answer is the bank, then you now know exactly whose interests come first, no matter how sincerely the opposite is promised. Safety is not the size of the building. Safety is the structure of the relationship. A small, correct structure without conflict of interest situations will protect you much better than the biggest bank on earth. Thomas learned this lesson for 4.2 million francs. You just learned it for free. If you hold significant assets and you have never had your banking structure examined by someone who is not paid to sell you anything, the first conversation with us is where clarity begins. You will find the link in the description below. Your assets deserve more than hope. They deserve a fortress. Be rich and remain rich.